I was sitting in my house a couple weeks ago, just relaxing. My doorbell rang. This is weird. It's a different feeling when your doorbell rings today opposed to 20 years ago, right? 20 years ago, your doorbell rang, that was a happy moment in your house. It's called company. Now your doorbell rings? It's like, what the fuck? All right, your own mother's crawling across the kitchen floor. Get down, my army crawl. Army crawl, get in the closet.
Sebastian Maniscalco's bit on doorbells is one of those funny because it's true type of jokes. I know this varies from person to person, from culture to culture, but at least for me, growing up in the West, there really has been a drastic change in how the average person reacts to the idea of an unknown person at your doorstep. Why is that? Is this actually justified? Or worse yet, has this been done by design? Late-night crime shows that tell terrifying stories of murder and mayhem. Stories so shocking that you can only sit in stunned silence, desiring justice for the victims. Then the show promises that you could help catch the killer. This format of the true crime genre was pioneered by shows like America's Most Wanted and Unsolved Mysteries. But what if the real purpose of these shows wasn't justice, but fear? While it looks like a news broadcast, it feels like a horror movie. Join me as we dive into these TV crime shows and how this primetime entertainment may have used real stories of tragedy in order to brainwash us into building a world where trust is rare and danger lurks around every corner.
Today, cocaine and marijuana are found throughout our society from top to bottom. And that means corruption, top to bottom, and gang war violence.
1980s America was a time of anxiety, high crime rates, the crack epidemic, and war on drugs. Images of chaos and social decay were plastered all over the media. Out of this mess was born two powerhouses of TV programming.
This is America's Most Wanted, and I'm John Walsh.
Tonight on Unsolved Mysteries.
Both shows presented similar formats: real crimes, real people, and the chance that you, the viewer, could be a hero.
Tonight's mysteries are stories without endings, all missing that one vital clue. Perhaps someone watching tonight knows what happened and can reveal the truth. Perhaps it's you.
These shows weren't just entertainment meant to be passively consumed. While the episodes were designed to scare you, they also embedded calls to action. It was as though you had a civic and moral obligation to watch each episode in the off chance that you would recognize a fugitive and then call in. In 1993, researchers Gray Cavender and Lisa Bond Maupin published a paper in the journal Sociological Inquiry exploring these shows. In the paper, they argue that these shows are basically the same as traditional crime drama. They say these shows represent a hybrid programming format in that a news or public service format is superimposed on entertainment to produce a new television genre, reality programming. I find this paper to present an interesting discussion of the purpose of this reality programming. So before we get into the results of their research, we should first discuss their method. The researchers analyzed a total of 16 randomly selected episodes from both shows, 9 from America's Most Wanted and 7 from Unsolved Mysteries. In total, the episodes contained 77 stories, or vignettes, as the paper calls them. They were interested in 3 specific aspects of each vignette. Number 1, demographics, types of crime, and general information on the crime, criminals, and victims. 2, characterizations, specific depictions of crime, criminals, and victims, such as brutality, dangerousness, or a victim's vulnerability. 3. Worldview. Relative safety of people and places, the terror and randomness of the crime, and what the audience should do about crime. The paper compares this new reality programming to traditional TV crime drama. Notably, both depictions differ from official crime statistics in a few ways. Firstly, there's an overrepresentation in personal and violent crime, which gets defined as murder, attempted murder, rape, kidnapping, armed robbery, and child molestation. Additionally, they found 0 depictions of corporate or political crimes. Okay, so now let's take a look at the data. Of the 2 shows, America's Most Wanted has the lion's share, as 92% of its vignettes depicted these kinds of crime, likely due to the nature of the show, being the most wanted criminals. Unsolved Mysteries is lower at 62%, but interestingly, over half of vignettes from both programs were murders. The vast majority of the perps were male, and the only female criminals featured were accomplices. The shows made sure to employ charged language to describe the psychological state of the killers. Descriptors like crazed killer, psycho, maniac, or just outright labeling them as schizophrenic, emotionally disturbed, or saying they showed no emotion. The programs define criminals through their actions, portraying criminality as a master status. Noting such deviance is undifferentiated in that the criminal activity is generalized to other aspects of their lives. For example, one criminal masqueraded as a construction worker, but he was really an escaped murderer. Another criminal who appeared to be a model cop was in reality a child molester. The victims are always the vulnerable, especially women and children. The paper notes that the programs focus on the victim's personal and professional worth. The hardworking, upstanding member of the community, the school teacher, the loving wife and mother. As one episode puts it, the kind of girl you'd like to have for your daughter. While it's about establishing their worth, it also serves to make them relatable. You know people like them. Maybe you are like them. And so analysis of the vignettes showed that both the victims and criminals were portrayed like the archetypes of urban legends. The study summarizes this idea by stating the vignettes are symbolic morality plays about good and evil. These stories were simple, dramatic, and easily personalized. Imagine, a drifter attacks a loving family, a hitchhiker kills a model college student, a kind babysitter faces a killer. When taking everything into consideration, the underlying message is clear. There are evil people out there who can't be reasoned with, can't be predicted, and they only want to hurt people. They could be anyone, their victims could be anyone, and they could strike at any time. And so even you, tucked into your blankets in the comfort of your own home, could be next. You don't want that to happen. Surely there must be something you can do to help make sure that doesn't happen to you or anyone else, right? Well, the show promises there is. Just keep your eyes peeled, stay vigilant, and if you see something, say something. In addition to exploring how language can frame how the vignettes can have an impact on the viewer, the paper also analyzes the show's production to identify emotional triggers employed by these shows to really draw you into the show. A lot of the induced fear came from techniques of cinematography. First and foremost, the crimes are reenacted. It's not just a matter-of-fact retelling of events, but it was designed to pull you in. You're no longer the passive viewer, but the actively victimized. The camera takes the victim's perspective, reproducing a good-evil dichotomy, with the victim and the audience aligned against the criminal. Imagine, now in front of you is a crazed killer, raising their gun in slow motion, and as you look down the barrel, a final muzzle flash goes off. The paper notes that a slow-motion gun sequence like this was used multiple times in multiple episodes of America's Most Wanted. This is just one of the examples of how slow motion was utilized to really increase the anxiety and fear a viewer feels. In addition to things like freeze frames on the intense stare of the killer, the shows often employed horror movie tropes like when the foolish character opens a door at the top of the stairs as the audience screams, "No," or showing a woman on the street feeling like she's being watched, only to eventually disappear. Another tool used was that of dramatic irony. This would recontextualize the events to add to the tragedy. For example, some of the vignettes were noted to have victims murdered after achieving an important goal or on their birthday. This, of course, increases the scale of tragedy and subsequent heartbreak you'd feel watching it. I just want to read these 2 paragraphs of the paper out to you, as I feel they do a great job at illustrating this idea. Other careful victims are murdered by maniacal killers, or by satanic blood cults. Emphasizing victim terror, victims often describe their fear. In other instances, the host describes the fear, indicating how it feels for a family to be stalked by a prison escapee bent on revenge. Situational and fear cues heighten the sense of victim terror and audience frustration. Vignettes feature people who are isolated and alone when victimized. In other instances, people are nearby, but do not render assistance to the victim. A woman whose baby has been kidnapped screams for help, but no motorist will stop. Careful, normal, and hardworking people are victimized by base, depraved strangers. They are also victimized by their children, spouses, mates, and friends. In this area, America's Most Wanted and Unsolved mystery programs extend beyond the content of urban legends, suggesting that modern danger is inescapable. And once the episode is over, you were told to call the number on the screen, building a cycle of fear and response. So why does this matter? The media we consume shapes how we think about reality and about each other. These shows present a world where pure evil lurks behind every door, down every alley. In fact, you probably pass by it every day. In the researchers' words, reality programs nurture audience participation as one solution to the pervasiveness of crime. And so widespread public suspicion and surveillance are now justified. I want to clarify that it's not that the vignettes are untrue. These are real stories of tragedy, and it's natural that they instill fear. But the point the paper seems to be making is that the type of stories curated and the dramatization that's basically indistinguishable from fictional drama is what has some deep effects on society. Now, that's not to say that there aren't positives to these programs.
Your tips keep on working, and the talent keeps on growing. This week, you found 3 of America's Most Wanted. We'll tell you how.
Hundreds of fugitives have been caught as a result of these viewer tips. But that doesn't mean that these negative effects aren't also present. So what does all of this mean for us today?
Some people think Toyota is blowing this big event thing way out of proportion. Well, maybe a little, but there's no exaggerating the deals on Toyota's most popular cars and trucks.
As a reminder, this paper was written in 1993. The true crime genre is bigger than it's ever been before. Crime podcasts often top the charts. Netflix documentaries are water cooler talk. With TikTok and YouTube channels much like this one, what these programs did, we now do to each other. And the paper said it best. Reality programming presents a world in which anyone can be cast into the role of a criminal or a victim. And now more than ever, there is greater demand and capability for surveillance. It's now more accessible, and the average person is more willing to give up their personal freedoms and privacy for the promise of safety and security. Whenever you consume any kind of media, it's always good practice to ask yourself what the intentions were behind it. When it comes to true crime, it's proven a tool useful in increasing paranoia, and maybe that's the point. And this is even true of the news as well. Why are the stories that are covered chosen over other events? Is the purpose of all of this to make you so afraid that you give up control? Who profits off of your fear? Have you been brainwashed?
We just presume it's normal, we presume it's okay. But between 1967 and today, think about how many more records there are about your life. Private things about you that have nothing to do with criminality. And the fact that all of that now today is exposed, and not just to, let's say you love the US government, but every other government in the world too. And we really need to ask ourselves, how much information do the authorities of the day need to do their job? Right? How much do we want them to have, and how much is too much? And if we decide the cops shouldn't have this, if we decide the spies shouldn't have this, well, why in the hell should Facebook or Google or somebody trying to sell you Nikes, why should they have this?
Thanks for watching. Let me know if you enjoyed this style of video. Do you think society has grown more paranoid than before? And what do you think caused it? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. I'll be watching. Bye for now, and I'll see you in the next one.